Hi everybody, welcome back. It's the Lone Wolf here again. I thought today I'd do a quick review and comment on an article in the Daily Mail about Robert De Niro and his divorce battle with his ex-waitress wife. It's when the page stops throwing ads at me, this is typical Daily Mail, just kicking out adverts all over the place so you can't read the damn article. Robert De Niro's blockbuster Bust Up. It's a truly toxic Hollywood divorce. Tom Leonard talks about how the Raging Bull star and his ex-waitress wife accuse each other of squandering his fortune on crazy spending. Now, this is a guy who's probably one of my favourite actors of all time. He's obviously got his own political views on the former president, but certainly his acting career is insurmountable. He's done so many great films like Deer Hunter, Casino, Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, you name it. He's done a phenomenal amount of films. A lot of those films are in my top 10 list of all time. Unfortunately, Godfather 2, incredible movie. But in recent years, he's had to do a lot of garbage. He's done things like Bad Grandpa, which there were some funny moments in that, to be honest, but he's had to do a lot of lower quality roles, purely to satisfy the spending habits of his wife. But anyway, let's break the piece down. So, Robert De Niro and Grace Hightower are engaged in a torturous divorce battle. The couple clashed in a virtual hearing over Miss Hightower's spending habits. Actor has previously gone to extraordinary lengths to keep such discussions private. So, when a former air hostess named Grace Hightower was working as a meter and greeter at Mr. Chow in 1987, the Knightsbridge restaurant was a celebrity spotter's paradise. Knightsbridge is a very well-to-do, very posh part of London, for those of you that don't know. It was where Eric Clapton, Michael Caine, David Bowie and Joan Collins sat down to overpriced Peking duck next to art world luminaries such as David Hockney, Peter Blake and Julian Schnabel. And so it should have been no surprise to anyone when Robert De Niro, then one of the most bankable stars in Hollywood and son of a notable painter, turned up for dinner. Even so, Miss Hightower, who was 32, insists she didn't recognise De Niro, then 44, as he peppered her with questions on everything from the restaurant's tables to its menus. It was only when she complained about him to a colleague that she was told who he was. The most bankable star in Hollywood at the time, and she didn't know who he was. She must have known who he was. I find that difficult to comprehend. Anyway, this revelation evidently led her to review her initial poor impression of him, and the pair soon started a relationship. Well, what a surprise that is. What a surprise. Turns out he's got power, wealth, influence, and one of the most famous people on the face of the earth. As soon as you're aware of that fact, you suddenly have an interest in him. It was an ease-in, it wasn't a whirlwind, she has said of their early days together. In fact, whirlwind is about the best word for a turbulent on-off marriage, which descended into mutual accusations of violence, alcohol and drug abuse. A few days ago, the famously private couple, now engaged in a torturous divorce battle, clashed once more in a New York court during a virtual hearing over Miss Hightower's spending habits. De Niro has previously gone to extraordinary lengths to keep such discussions private, and it's not hard to see why. The jaw-dropping sums involved and the lavish lifestyles exposed don't sit well with his image as a serious thespian and staunch Trump-loathing Democrat. The latest hearing answered many questions, not least why an actor widely regarded as one of the finest of his generation keeps making such utterly dreadful films. You got that right, honestly. According to his lawyer, Caroline Krauss, the star of Taxi Driver, Mean Streets and The Godfather Part 2 nowadays makes howlers, such as Dirty Grandpa and Little Fockers, not to mention commercials for Baker Warburtons and carmaker Kia, because he has to pay for 66-year-old Miss Hightower's extravagant spending habits. Mr. De Niro is 77 years old, and while he loves his craft, he should not be forced to work at this prodigious pace because he has to, Miss Krauss said. And that's an absolute fact. Like, why should he keep... Obviously, he loves acting and he would like to keep doing it. He did The Irishman, which I thought was very, very good. It wasn't up there with, his earlier films, like Godfather 2, of course, but I thought it was a very, very good film. but he just has to keep putting out complete rubbish, and that goes on his filmography for his entire career. That, in my view, it like tarnishes his body of work. He's got a legendary body of work, and he's tarnishing that in his twilight years because of having to satisfy his wife's spending habits. It's tragic. When does that stop? When does he get the opportunity to not take every project that comes along and not work 6-day weeks, 12-hour days, so he can keep pace with Miss Hightower's thirst for Stella McCartney? He could get sick tomorrow and the party's over. Fact. As well as spending profligately on the British designer's clothing, Miss Hightower spent an average $215,000 a month on her credit card and another $160,000 in cash. In 2019 alone, she reportedly spent $1.67 million, most of it on a $1.2 million diamond from a high-end New York jeweller's. On top of Miss Hightower's rocketing financial demands, Ms. Krauss revealed De Niro owes millions in unpaid taxes. She said the income from his next 2 films will be devoted to paying off this debt, which in 2015 was revealed to be $6.4 million. Can you imagine doing something that you don't really want to do? You've got to work on a film that you don't really believe in and you know is trash. And you're working for free, essentially. The money's going to pay off debts or unpaid taxes. So you're essentially working for free on a garbage project, which must be chastening. Naturally, the Hightower camp hasn't taken all this sitting down. The lawyer Kevin McDonough countered that his client was owed payments to maintain the status quo lifestyle she enjoyed with De Niro during their marriage, and the actor's own habits, he claimed, have not been cut back at all. When Mr. De Niro goes to brunch on Sunday in Connecticut, he charters a helicopter up there, he claimed. When he flies down to see his friends in Florida, it's a private jet. But it's his money. He earns the money from his labour and his work and his success and his career. Who can begrudge him enjoying that success? It should be said that the Hightower camp denied the diamond claim, while De Niro's lawyer challenged the chopper allegation. Mr. McDonough said that since the pair filed for divorce in 2018, the second time they've done so, De Niro has been unfairly decreasing his payments to his estranged wife, including lowering her monthly American Express credit card limit from $375,000 to $100,000 as of January this year. So that's around 3 times the average American's salary for the year in 1 month. And she burns through that, and it's not good enough. These numbers are astounding, to be honest. It was left to the judge, Justice Matthew Cooper, to remind the couple how ridiculous this all sounded, and he's right. There is nothing ordinary about these expenses for 99.9999% of the world. These are extraordinary to an almost unimaginable degree, he said. I want to get Miss Hightower and Mr. De Niro to go their separate ways. They will still come out of this richer than almost any human being who walks the earth. And he could have added many, many times richer than the woman Miss Hightower once was as the daughter of a farmer in Mississippi. It's easy to see De Niro and his estranged wife as 2 enemies united by their overweening greed. But an insider who's been involved in their feud told the Daily Mail this week that it's more complicated. De Niro, he says, isn't so much venal as in the bohemian tradition of his artist father, Robert Sr. Incredibly wasteful with money, he fritters it away. His accountant used to tear his hair out. So I'm not going to read all of the rest of this article, but there's some key points. They're basically talking about everybody playing on De Niro's generosity. He's quite generous. He likes to look after, and he's trying to buy peace with his estranged wife. He's got the father of 6 children by 3 different mothers. And it also describes Miss Hightower as a little bit of a tiger, but also flighty and irrational. Matrimonial disputes are usually more about anger than money. She feels scorned and she's never been successful in her own right. Well, whose fault's that? It's your fault. It talks about how she grew up in an impoverished corner of the Deep South with 7 brothers and 2 sisters. She did odd jobs to support the family's meagre finances, working at a local dime store and in a post room before becoming a flight attendant for the TWA airline in her 20s, and then she embarked on a financial career trading mutual funds, but it didn't work out because she said she was too cautious about investing other people's money. Yeah, but she's pretty good at spending other people's money, right? Hilarious. And then you've got De Niro obviously doing all of these Kia ads. It's embarrassing, man. Absolutely embarrassing. She then relocated to London after all that, where she met De Niro. And De Niro obviously is a compulsive womanizer, He's attracted to statuesque, beautiful black women, and the striking Miss Hightower certainly fitted the bill. When they met, he was still married to Diane Abbott, but their 12-year marriage, which produced 2 children, ended in 1988. He wasn't exclusive with Miss Hightower at the start of the marriage. He had a string of affairs, apparently, with a bunch of different famous people. His longtime girlfriend had 2 twin sons by in vitro fertilization with her. And then by 1996, Miss Hightower had won the battle for De Niro's affections, and a year later, with a reported $100,000 engagement ring, married the Raging Bull star. Yep, splashy wedding. Some of his pals hadn't gone. Harvey Keitel went, Joe Pesci. Others didn't because they'd fallen out with her already. They then had a son. So they had a son, Elliot, a year after they married, only for the relationship to quickly become toxic, and De Niro filed for divorce for the first time in 1999. 2 years later, he went to court to challenge her for custody of Elliot. The gloves really came off. Alleging he was concerned for Elliot's safety, De Niro said Hightower had a violent temper, fracturing his ribs once in a jealous rage on a yacht after accusing him of having an affair with another woman on board. She countered that the actor had alcohol and drugs problems that made him an unfit parent, and his lawyer denied those. And that the divorce was never finalised. They renewed their vows in 2004. Watched by a celebrity crowd again. So it's shocking. I mean, he's having to do all of these atrocious roles to placate an irrational person, a violent person as well. And it's very tragic, very, very tragic. I think the major takeaway from all this is to just be very, very careful. Well, 1, don't get married, and 2, be very, very careful that who you enter into long-term relationships with. You don't want to be a slave, because at the moment, De Niro is basically a slave. He's having to work to satisfy the wants and needs of someone else, and his needs are second at the moment. So I'm going to leave it there for that article. Thanks very much for listening. Hope you've taken some of the messages away. And yeah, thanks again for listening. This has been The Lone Wolf. See you in the next video.